Every year, millions of Americans are exposed to a contagious virus.
It's not a disease.
But it's toxic.
It's not genetic.
But we're all at risk.
You can contract it from a stranger or a friend.
You can catch it at the movies.
Or by listening to a song.
And if you spent even a minute on the internet,
You've definitely been exposed.
What is this virus? It's stigma.
Stigma.
It's stigma.
Stigma may not directly affect you.
But it harms the 1 in 5 Americans living with mental health conditions.
Stigma promotes an environment of shame,
Fear and silence.
Which prevents millions of people from seeking help.
Stigma isn't just harmful. You also risk coming across as a real jerk.
but there's good news.
The National Alliance on Mental Illness believes stigma towards mental illness is 100% curable.
And it's pretty easy to find out if you have it.
So do yourself and everyone a favor.
Go to curestigma.org and get tested for stigma.
Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Michael Hunter. As we all continue to battle the coronavirus and cope with its many far-reaching consequences, a number of inspiring stories are emerging. Stories of heroes on the front lines of medical care and science, in grocery stores and delivery trucks, all working long hours to keep us well and fed and safe. Here at My Healthy Mind, we have always referred to our guests as heroes because of the tough challenges they faced and overcome. Today, we're bringing you some of their stories.
I've been playing football since probably 10 years old, and every fall you put a uniform on, and this is your identity. And I was cut at age 32, and I didn't know what to do. But it started happening to me before I left. When I look back on it, before I left football, I'd had a bunch of injuries, and then my last year, mid-season, I finally got my starting job back, and I played horrible. And I just realized, I can't do this anymore. They cut me, the next day. This is something, I was on the inside, and I'm on the outside. And that all culminated into a time when my wife was driving to the airport, and it was pretty impulsive, but it was these thoughts that I've been having, over and over and over in my head that I just didn't feel good, and people would be better off without me. That's my self-esteem had fallen that low. And I jumped out of the car. We were going 75 miles an hour when I hit the pavement. Well, I woke up and I was all bandaged up, from the tumble, and I had a concussion, but also some surgery and stuff had to happen. But I woke up, and that's the conversation is with a psychiatrist in the room, and my parents were in the room, and they're having these. I didn't want any part of these conversations. No, I am not going to go inpatient. No, I'm not going to talk about mental health or my mental illness, really. We're not going to have that discussion. I'm fine. I'm good now. I'm ready to go. Just shove it aside. When my son was living with me, he started going through those as well, and not ever, reaching out and finding out more about him. I just didn't have the right language, didn't have the right skill set, and he didn't either. And unfortunately, when he was 15 years old, he took his life. And in that moment was killer to me. I remember looking at his body in the morgue, and my thought was, oh, I can't live with this. There's no way. The guilt was just overpowering, and the pain hurt so bad. But I also realized that, before, like when I jumped out of the car, that people would be better off. That's what I thought. But now I know they're not, because standing next to his body, excuse me, standing next to his body was it hurts. And so I don't want to do that to anybody. And instead, I just decided just to be numb. And so that was the, I started self-medicating really heavy then. Yeah. Couldn't face it, didn't want to feel it. And that's a problem, because you have to experience pain to get through it. And I finally got arrested and picked up on a DUI. And while I was in jail was the true game changer, because it gave me a chance to sit down and look at all these other guys that are sitting in here, and everybody had an excuse, everybody had a reason why they're here. And it dawned on me, oh my gosh, am I one of those guys? I'm here because my son died. That gives me the, the right to behave this way and to act this way, and I did not want to be one of those guys. And so I vowed when I got out that I'd start asking questions. I'd get, well, I want to find out what happened to him. I want to find out what happened to me. I want answers for this stuff. These doctors were talking at this lunch and learn about depression and brain chemistry and the changes, the symptoms. And it was like, oh my gosh. It's like, that's it. At that time, I was not mentally healthy. In fact, if we start looking at it that way and say, I'm tough, I can handle anything. Well, maybe you can, right? But if you don't, take care of yourself, at some point in time, there's something that can take you down. And when it does, you might not recover from it. Getting up, for me, it took a while, man, but it was, because I had to look at this whole thing from a mental health point of view. Guys are different. Guys like to fix things, right? And so, how do you fix this? Well, first of all, you got to know what it is, right? So, what is happening with you? If you're not sleeping well, if you do get agitated easily, maybe you get headaches and things like that. What is that about? Okay. Well, I'm going to go see a doctor. Well, most guys don't. Okay, right? If I break my ankle, I'll go see a doctor. Okay, but other than that, I can deal with it. I'm tough, right? But identify what's going on first of all. Okay, and then that gives us the ability to say, okay, now that I know what it is, oh my gosh, okay, what do I do about it? And that's the piece. If you think about, you need tools. You need things around you to understand. It'd be like trying to fix something, right, without the right tools. I can't build a house with just a hammer. I can build part of a house with a hammer, and some nails and stuff, but I can't build a house without it. Tools can be many things for yourself as an individual. Mindfulness training, which is about being in the moment and not the worry and the worry about things that happened or worry about things that's going to happen. It's about being in the moment and appreciating this moment right here. It's also, keep a log. If you're trying to identify what's going on, what are the nights you're not sleeping? We wear stuff like Fitbits and things like that for information. So if I'm not sure, then put some of the information down. Also, don't be hard on yourself. Admit you're human. Don't be in denial, because denial is avoidance, right? And if we can't avoid things forever, and so you start looking at the game plan. You start looking at the tools that you might need. And realize that you can't do it alone. And getting, some close friends or somebody you can go to, a good support system or network, whatever that might look like for you, but use it. When we talk about mental health and mental illness, it doesn't have to be a sad story all the time. And unfortunately, that's what some people think. Oh, I don't want to hear that story. But no, it isn't. It's about life.
I believe that we each come into this world as a different package. And I was fortunate to come as a package with a lot of energy and optimism, always looking at the half full and not the half empty. My parents were both working people. That is, my father was a skilled furniture maker. We lived in modest surroundings, but I was not missing any essentials of living. I would say it was a comfortable, happy childhood. In the winter of 39 or 40, our parents decided that they want to escape Poland and go to the Soviet Union. My father was a leader also in the labor union, and I'm sure they felt that they would be among the first ones to be persecuted by the Nazis. We ended up on the no man's land in the winter for about 6 to 7 weeks in the winter in an open field. When we came out from that secluded area where we spent the rest of the night, we saw fields with thousands of people laying on the snow, leaning against bags, suitcases. My feet got frostbitten. I had open wounds, was unable to wear my shoes. My mother tore a garment of hers, wrapped my feet in rags, and I was shuffling around. People were dying from diseases, from exposure, from starvation. And the young men buried them in shallow graves. My parents apparently concluded that they have to take some drastic steps, but we are not going to survive. There seemed to be no end to it. So my father smuggled himself across the border one night. There he bribed an official to give him a letter saying that he may cross the border. But when he returned, the letter said only he may take his children. So my father took my sister and myself to safety to the Soviet Union. We walked the whole night in the forest. A few months, a few weeks, I don't know exactly how it is, my mother showed up. You can imagine my joy, my excitement, and also confusion. I didn't know whether she was alive. We didn't know. We didn't hear anything from her, and she showed up. We heard that Soviet soldiers were coming in the middle of the night, taking away all the young men, and no one knew what happened to these men. And that night, when my sister and I were alone, Soviet soldiers kicked in the door of the cabin. They said, "Get your stuff." And they marched us to a train station where there was a long line of cattle cars. And it was such a frightening feeling to see that we are alone without our parents, and those soldiers were shoving in people and those. But fortunately and miraculously somehow, when the platform was almost empty of people, we saw our parents from a distance. The train was so packed, it's a cargo train, so packed that people were just sitting in upright position. There was no room to lie down. They were leaning against whatever they could. And you know, they would pull the doors together, slide them, and a heavy metal bar, and the inside was so dark, there were no windows. The only light we had was that which was coming between the cracks of the boards. After about 6 or 8 weeks on it, we ended up in a labor camp in the Siberian taiga. And you know, in Siberia, in wintertime, the daylight is only about 3 hours. And then it's dark like night. And temperature would drop to 55 below. We lived for stretches of time on boiled grass and leaves. My mother would go into the field, pick up leaves, grass, whatever was available, boil it, drink it first herself if she will survive it or if she would get sick. If she was okay, she would give it to us as well. My sister and I ended up in an orphanage while our parents were alive. My sister and I ended up for a few years in that orphanage, and my father died while we were in the orphanage, yes. In '46, I came back to Poland and still spent another 4 or 5 years in orphanages after the war. And what was so important for me, I just in the orphanage just dreamt of normalcy, of living in a small house with my family, not 100 kids in one room, not to be hungry again. Nothing of what I envisioned became reality. All my relatives, every one of them, were killed during the Holocaust. In 1950, I joined my mother to go to Israel. That was a different chapter of my life with different challenges. I didn't know anyone in Israel. I also didn't know the spoken language Hebrew. But I survived. I had a lot of courage and a lot of gumption too. A year later, I became a teacher in the public school system, only in Hebrew. Maybe by seeing such a diverse and such a cruel and also kind behavior of people, it always made me curious, what is the driving force underneath all that range of behaviors? And I wanted to study psychology. I went to the evening college, University of Cincinnati. I got a psychology degree. I had a master's then in social psychology. A few years later, I entered Xavier University, also in Cincinnati, and got a second master's, an MBA with a major in hospital management. I was the director of Livingston County Mental Health Department. I had always felt that I have to be the voice of the voiceless. You know, I am asked many times how I don't project any anger. I don't have any anger. No bitterness, I don't. How did I do that? I don't have a clear-cut answer to that. It was a day at a time. Always looking for something to get involved in. Always using my energy, trying to do something constructive. Without consciously doing it, it probably took me a while to come to terms with myself that I am a Holocaust survivor. It was easier for me not to think about it, but to keep all my memories locked up in the attic somewhere. And with the acceptance came also some reminders that I carried from my childhood, that I can do anything I want to. So being surrounded by positive people, not dwelling on things that are insignificant, not reliving past mistakes. Forgive yourself if you did a mistake. Acknowledge you did a mistake. You wouldn't do it now. Forgive yourself. And if it's a mistake that you feel you did something against another person, then apologize. And accept it and go on. Go on with the future and don't dwell on the past. I have led my life, my adult life, most of my time that I remember based on that principle to do everything I can to make the world a little better for everyone.
Well, I served in the Persian Gulf, and I was in artillery. We're part of a gun team. I was fresh out of boot camp, fresh out of training, and got in the Marine Corps. When they were doing bombing raids, the ground would shake, and you know what would go through our young minds was, "Holy cow! I would not want to be on the receiving end of that." The destruction, it's overwhelming. The anxiety was, what are we going to face? And when we face it, how's it going to turn out? You definitely didn't want to go to see the chaplain or go see mental health, especially mental health, because you'd be considered combat ineffective. And in country, it's a very shaming. They take your weapon away. For some veterans, it makes them feel like they can't do the job anymore. So guys wouldn't say anything. I got injured while I was in the last 6 months of my military career was mostly spent in a hospital, and I discharged from Michigan. But during the time when I got out, I became very depressed, very confused, and I would look around and I would see friends and family who had been to college and had been working and started careers, and I felt like I just lost 4 years of my life. I'm here self-loathing. I'm stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. What can I do? I've always been an athletic person, an outdoors person. I didn't know where to go next, didn't know what to do next. And everybody around me didn't know how to deal with me. They would walk on eggshells. A typical day was a lot of isolation. I wouldn't come out of my room. A lot of times I would eat my dinners in my room. It's a lot of personal embarrassment of being in a wheelchair, that transition, and I didn't want people to see me like that. I've always had a very strong sense of self, a very confident person, and the Marine Corps really made me even more confident, and I really felt broken, and not just physically, but emotionally broken, and to the point where I was contemplating suicide. One of the things that the Marine Corps really instilled in us to get us to do things that go against what we live here in the United States, the Golden Rule, is to dehumanize to the point where that's not a human that we're taking, that is an enemy. The only emotion that you really were allowed to show in the military was anger and humor. So when I was at home in my own mind, the only emotion I was showing was anger, and that was more of being in a wheelchair. I almost felt like it was punishment. It was like, God was telling me, you did something wrong. And I felt very alone, very scared, questioning my own faith. The God I believe in, how could he let us do this to each other? What I wanted to do was, I didn't want to go to counseling. I was afraid to open up this Pandora box that I felt I had because I have never cried. Even when I got injured, I was stone-faced. I had that Marine Corps mentality where you adapt and you overcome and you just suck it up. But life doesn't work like that. You do adapt and overcome, but it's a process. In the Marine Corps, you're told when to eat, you're told when to sleep, you're told when you can shower, you're told every aspect of your life is instructed, very structured. So when you get out of the military, you have all this freedom. I can decide for myself. I don't know how to think for myself right now. And that was a hard transition, and that's part of the readjustment process. When I was and that was in the 90s, we kept the mask on, maybe like a facade, that we were strong Marines, emotionless, nothing bothered us. We adapt and we overcome everything, and so if someone were to seek help, even within a unit, their own buddies, there was some stigma that came with that. Like, okay, this guy must be weak. We're not sure if we go somewhere else, if we want to take him with us. So you didn't talk. And this was later in the 2000s where you started seeing some of the guys saying, I did go seek help, and it was helpful. I think where a lot of guys said that's really helped them is when somebody that was a senior NCO or an officer that actually went. When you see somebody like that, that's a leader that is going to get help, that opens up the door for them. Part of the readjustment process is readjusting in all facets of your life, readjusting back into society, readjusting back into your family. When you come home, especially as a veteran, when you come home, you want to come home to what you left. But understand that just like life went on with you, life went on with your family members as well. They have a readjustment as well. They have to readjust to the changes that you've made in your life and what you came home with, and the changes that they have as well, adjusting to you being gone. What veterans really want is to be understood. Whatever that means to the veteran is to be understood that they've been through a lot. They may be very confused, but they want to be understood. They don't want to be stigmatized. And veterans really do want to come home. And when I say come home, I mean come home completely, reintegrate back into society, and that takes a lot of conversation between everybody. Don't wait for the world to come to you. You engage the world. As veterans, take everything that the military taught you, the good, bad, and the ugly, apply it, but a lot of it is on us to bridge that gap as well. We can't expect society to just welcome us with open arms if they don't understand. We have to talk. We have to be open. We have to step outside of veteran-only communities. Another piece of advice I would give to family members and friends is veterans don't want you to solve their problems. Matter of fact, you can't solve their problems. For a lot of them, they just want you to know that you're there. And for the veterans, you know, open yourself up to family and friends. Open yourself up to them being there. Allow them to be there. Don't get stuck in the thought that you have to tell them and explain every gory detail of what it is to be in combat. Most people don't want to know that. You know, we just want to know how to help. Open your arms, your heart, and your mind, body, and soul to them, and tell them how you feel. And hopefully we can have more conversations like this and other platforms. And the community and the veterans, we can come together and be one big happy family.
My job was causing me so much stress.
I felt disconnected and frightened.
I felt so isolated.
I was beginning to feel trapped, depressed. I never expected that to happen to me.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel, but that is so untrue.
It's good to be able to talk about it.
I was able to seek help. I found it from Team Wellness.
It's a sense of freedom.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
One of my favorite quotes by one of my own personal heroes is this: "We do not have to become heroes overnight, just a step at a time, meeting each thing that comes up, seeing it is not as dreadful as it appears, discovering that we have the strength to stare it down." Thank you for watching. You'll find the complete catalog of My Healthy Mind episodes on our website at myhealthymind.com. And we, of course, will continue to bring you messages of perseverance and hope for as long as it takes to get us through this crisis and back to normal. Meanwhile, be well and stay safe. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content from My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. If you'd like to learn more about these or any mental health issues, please visit us at myhealthymind.com. Follow us on Twitter at MyHealthyMind or on Facebook. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it.